All right, folks, we have some disturbing breaking news. Donald Trump just spoke to reporters in the Oval Office and said all sorts of unhinged, dishonest, authoritarian things, from another attack on a Venezuelan boat, his announcement that he will send the National Guard into Memphis and Chicago, even over the objections of state and local leaders, that he intends to strip First Amendment protections from protesters, and he continued to relentlessly demonize liberals, progressives, and Democrats, and all sorts of just shocking statements, even by Trump standards. Take a look.
Do you think it would have been fitting to lower the flags to half-staff when Melissa Hortman, the Minnesota House Speaker, was gunned down by an assassin as well?
I'm not familiar.
The Minnesota House Speaker, a Democrat, who was assassinated this summer.
Well, if the governor had asked me to do that, I would have done that. But the governor of Minnesota didn't ask me. I didn't. I wouldn't have thought of that, but I would have if somebody had asked me. People make requests for the lowering of flag, and oftentimes you have to say no because it would be a lot of lowering. The flag would never be up. Had the governor of Minnesota asked me to do that, I would have done that gladly.
He lowered the flag for Charlie Kirk, which is his right. Charlie Kirk is not a public figure or public official. I suppose he's a public figure. Trump just said, well, he's a supporter of mine, so I'll lower the flag. But the Minnesota Democratic lawmaker, Melissa Hortman, and her husband were assassinated by a Trump supporter. It was all over the news. Another Minnesota Democratic lawmaker and his spouse were also shot by that same Trump supporter. They survived. And Trump was famously feuding with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. It sounds like he doesn't even remember who the Minnesota governor is. I mean, you see it. He's like, who are you talking about? Minnesota? Oh, yeah, I would have done that. Minnesota governor asked me to. You wouldn't even call him. Trump famously, it was reported, refused to call Tim Walz to offer his condolences for the murder of this Minnesota Democratic lawmaker and the attempted murder of another by a Trump supporter. And yet he wants us to believe that he would have lowered the flag in her honor. Shameless, despicable, visibly confused. But there's more.
Gladly.
And given the killing of Melissa Hortman, the attack on Paul Pelosi, the attack on Gabby Giffords, the attack on the Pennsylvania governor's mansion, why make the case that violence is only on one side? It seems to be taking place.
I didn't say it's on one side, but I say the radical left causes tremendous violence, and they seem to do it in a bigger way. But the radical left really is caused a lot of problems for this country. I really think they hate our country.
Who's the radical left? To him, that's the thing. He calls everybody who disagrees with him radical left. So I just have to assume he's referring to Democrats in general. Joe Biden's a communist, a fascist, a Marxist. Communist Kamala. Same thing. Just anybody who happens to disagree with him and who's affiliated with the Democratic Party, he calls radical left. So again, have to assume he's painting half the country as these far-right radicals that he believes hates the country. I will point out that the data, Trump's own administration, the first Trump administration, the Biden administration, law enforcement under bipartisan administrations, as well as think tanks and universities, the scholarship is very clear on this. Right-wing violence is more frequent and more egregious, and that it happens more and it results in more fatalities on average than the left-wing violence. And so the reporter asked a really good question, which is, hey, you gave examples of violence against right-wingers, fair enough, but why do you relentlessly cherry-pick and refuse to acknowledge violence against Democrats? He's supposed to be the president of the United States, and when he condemns political violence, as previous presidents have done, Republican and Democrat, he should be condemning political violence across the board. Instead, he doesn't give a shit about violence committed against Democrats, liberals, and progressives, which is why he apparently forgot who the hell Melissa Hortman was. He's much more concerned and only concerned with violence against people whom he likes. And that's a terrible quality in a president, especially when we're looking for somebody to lower the temperature.
And we brought down crime a little bit in Chicago, but we're now going to bring it down very big. We're going to be doing Chicago probably next. I was with a great businessman, a man who is involved in all cities through his business. And I say, who do you think should be next after Memphis? And he said, sir, you've got to save Chicago. We're going to wait a little while. But he said, you got to save Chicago. You can't let it go. And this is a very prominent man that everybody knows. And this is from another man in Memphis.
So, again, Trump is saying that they're going to go into Memphis, which, of course, is in Tennessee, and Tennessee has a Republican governor. So, again, I'm just confused why you just don't have the Republican governor do it instead of Donald Trump doing it. The Republican governor can snap his fingers and activate the National Guard whenever he wants. They operate under dual authority. Why are you waiting for Trump to do it? Sounds a little more like a political stunt. Of course, the mayor of Memphis is not happy about this, but But yeah, he's also indicating that he might go into Baltimore, Maryland.
We're glad that Memphis is the place to go. The volunteer state, we're not going to have any problems with the Tennessee National Guard being willing to go in and stand strong in Memphis, sir.
Not at all. And get ready because you'll be doing a lot of other places that are almost as troubled.
You got it, sir.
Some of them are equal. You look at what's going on in Baltimore, where the governor was telling me how wonderful it is, and you can't walk across the street without being shot.
So the governor of Maryland, which is the state that Baltimore is in, is Wes Moore, a Democrat who's been feuding with Trump publicly. So again, this just seems to be like a thumb in the eye to Democratic governors in particular, not really about fighting crime. And again, if it's just Tennessee, just have the governor of Tennessee do it. Really strange executive overreach. This is where Donald Trump suggests that maybe people aren't going to be exercising their First Amendment right to protest anytime soon.
That's a violent radical left group. Okay, go ahead.
I got peppered with a lot of comments for doing that. They still have their First Amendment right, though. They're still out there protesting.
Well,
You've got an amazing team behind you. You've done it all.
So right there, he said, I'm not so sure. Wait, are you going to try to strip constitutionally protected First Amendment rights from people? Is that what you're trying to do? Yes, of course it is. Of course that's what Trump is trying to do, because it's all about preventing people from engaging in dissent against him, preventing people from, expressing their antipathy or disagreement with him. In this clip, he suggests that the National Guard, wherever he sends them, will basically be let off the leash to commit all sorts of civil and human rights violations if provoked. You spit at them, do whatever the hell you want.
Border Patrol, ICE, it's got whatever it is, and they're throwing rocks at it. And after 50 yards, it looks like an old beat-up vehicle. It was just brand new. It was just bought for the purposes. And they don't have to take that anymore. I let it be known. We'll take responsibility. They don't have to take it anymore. And they don't want to take it. They were told by a past administration, it became almost a culture, if somebody throws a rock at you, do nothing. If somebody spits in your face, do nothing. And I say, when they spit, you hit. Do whatever you want. You do whatever the hell you want.
So I do not believe for a second that any previous administration told federal law enforcement that, hey, if people throw a rock at you, people throw rocks at you, that you're obligated to just take the abuse. Now, obviously, they need to operate with some sort of restraint. Obviously, that's what law enforcement has to do. But there is no legal obligation under any prior administration that I'm aware of that says you just have to stand there like statues and just take physical violent abuse from a riotous mob. No, you have to conduct yourself with appropriate levels of force. And Trump's saying, no, screw that. If someone spits at you, do whatever the hell you want. So I guess that means they're free in Trump's eyes to just beat somebody into a coma or beat them to death if they get spit in the face. And that is wildly unacceptable. That's the sort of rhetoric that Trump is espousing. That's the sort of misconduct in civil and human rights abuses and violations of the law that Trump is seemingly endorsing here.
Mr. President, can I ask you one
Yeah,
on
sure.
crime and one on Charlie Kirk? You floated potentially going into St. Louis. You mentioned you want to go into Chicago next. Could St. Louis be after Chicago?
It's going to be around there someplace. Yeah, we got to save St. Louis. We got to save these cities. This isn't like, we're going to do something. We have to save St. Louis. We have to save Chicago. I know all about Chicago. I have a great, beautiful building. I'm so proud of it. But, you get less proud when you see all the crime. When they announced 2 weeks ago, 11 people killed, this is over a weekend, I think they said 38 people shot and 11 people dead. And then you watch Pritzker get up and say, we've got crime under control. And I will say that Cash and the FBI did a good job. With a very light force, they went in, and for about 4 months, Cash or so, they've been working on keeping crime down. They have brought the numbers down a little bit. But those are the easy numbers. The first 20, 25% are the easy numbers. That's where it gets. Then you have to bring in the big forces, right, which is what we always intended to do. But
that's the part that's really ominous. What do you mean by big forces? Remember, Trump recently, within the past couple of weeks, shared a meme where he said Chicago is about to find out why we now call it the Department of War, and posted like an Apocalypse Now inspired meme of himself and military helicopters, setting fire to the Chicago skyline, declaring war on one of his own cities, a city that he is responsible for protecting. He wants to invade it. Again, the rhetoric here is pretty disturbing. At a time when we're trying to ratchet down the temperature, not increase it, he's doing the exact opposite. This is where he talks about another strike on another Venezuelan boat.
First on Venezuela, what can you tell us about this Venezuelan boat that was taken out? And do you plan to provide proof that these were narco-terrorists who were on their way to the U.S.?
Well, we have proof. All you have to do is look at the cargo that was like it's spattered all over the ocean. Big bags of cocaine and fentanyl all over the place. And it was, plus we have recorded evidence that they were leaving. We've recorded them. It was very careful because we know you people would be after us. We're very careful.
The problem is that they said this about the first ship and they haven't provided evidence because there's no reason. You have every reason to not take the Trump administration at face value. You have every reason to doubt, to be skeptical. The fact of the matter is that in the first missile strike, it's very possible that he violated both domestic and international law because even if they are drug traffickers, which we again have no evidence that they are, they're not enemy combatants. You need to try to interdict. They have civil and human rights. They have due process considerations. And then, yes, if you try to take them into custody, if you try to interdict and they attack you, then of course the United States is entitled to self-defense. And if that means killing the drug traffickers, the hypothetical drug traffickers who are attacking the United States armed forces there, that's one thing. But again, we have no evidence that that's what's happening. Trump has specifically asked again about sending in the National Guard to cities over the objections of local leaders and what he intends to do if those leaders object.
Mr. President, how will you send the National Guard into Chicago without the cooperation of the governor and the mayor?
Well, if they do cooperate, that's good. If they don't, it's not going to matter to us at all. You know who wants to help us? Police department. They have no respect for the governor. They have no respect for the mayor.
So again, Trump's like, listen, screw states' rights and local rights. The wishes of state and local leaders are totally irrelevant as far as he's concerned. Now, I don't know to what extent that Chicago police forces want the National Guard to be involved. Perhaps they do, perhaps they don't. Again, he's offered no substantiation of that, but it comes down to the fact that there is a local chain of command, a state chain of command, and he has absolutely no regard for it because it's all about flexing authoritarian muscle. Here, Trump has asked specifically about Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
Ilhan Omar, after his assassination, called Charlie Kirk a reprehensible human being. Should she be stripped of her community assignments?
I would say, I think she's a disgraceful person. I think she's a disgraceful person, a loser. It's amazing the way people vote. I know it's people from...
So I am not aware of Ilhan Omar referring to Charlie Kirk as a reprehensible person, but guess what? She has every right to do so. This is constitutionally protected speech. She did not incite, by referring to a dead man, a murdered man, assassinated man, a man who was brutally assassinated, but even if she referred to him after his assassination as reprehensible, so what? Republicans say all sorts of unhinged things about Democratic leaders all the time. And if that's going to be the predicate to strip committee assignments, boy, oh boy, if and when Democrats ever get back into power, that's going to set an uncomfortable precedent. Now, I would agree if Ilhan Omar or any Democrat were to incite violence against a living person, that would be a problem. But she hasn't done that. Instead, it's like, no, you can't say things I don't like about Charlie Kirk, otherwise you should be punished. That's bullshit. That's a cancel culture, the likes of which we have never seen from the Democratic Party. One last clip.
A lot of these, in recent of these trans shooters that we've seen over the last couple incidents, this flag right here is up and down 14th Street. This is what would be the trans flag. A lot of people are very threatened by this flag. It means a lot of different negative things to people, violence. Would you be opposed to taking this flag down, up and down the streets of DC?
Well, I wouldn't be. Then they'll sue and they'll get freedom of speech stuff, so that'll happen. But I would have no problem with it.
So I don't know who's asking that question, but obviously as a right-wing dipshit, just want to remind everybody that the trans community represents a fraction of 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 the population of the United States, and that the overwhelming majority of gun violence committed in this country are committed by people who are not trans, by cis people. Okay, so if the logic is, okay, well, there have been some instances of violence perpetrated by trans people, therefore we need to initiate a crackdown on trans people, then what the hell are you setting up a precedent for against white people? I don't want to be the subject. I'm a white guy. I'm a white cis guy. And white cis guys tend to commit a disproportionate amount of political violence, particularly on the right wing. I don't want to be the subject of a crackdown simply because some assholes who may look like me or may look like other cis white people will commit violence. So why are we applying this sort of logic that we would never accept for literally anybody else and applying it to trans people? Would this guy, presumably a cis white guy, like it if a more liberal reporter asked a Democratic president, hey, I just can't help but notice that most violence is perpetrated by like straight cis white people. So maybe we should punish them in some way, take down things that they like. Hey, the Confederate flag, I don't really see the point of the Confederate flag given that they led a violent insurrection against the United States of America. And given that cis straight white people tend to wave the Confederate flag around, maybe we should take that damn flag around off anywhere we see it. How would those people react to that? How would Republicans and conservatives react to that? They'd be like, no, you can't do that. I have the right to carry my flag. Just because I carry a flag doesn't mean I'm one of them like domestic terrorists or right-wing violent people. Exactly. So apply the same logic to trans people as if they are people in your eyes. Maybe treat them that way. It's just disgusting stuff. Looking to scapegoat a marginalized community. Again, another unhinged press conference from Donald Trump in which he makes all sorts of sinister announcements. And again, even just like on the question about Melissa Hortman and lowering the flag, visibly confused. He has no recollection of who she is or who she was, even though she died 3 months ago. She was murdered by a Trump supporter. He just doesn't give a shit. And that does not bode well for lowering the temperature in terms of violent rhetoric and political violence. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.